Imagine a world where the simple act of drawing fresh water or flushing away waste is a luxury beyond reach. For millions of people today, this is still a harsh reality. Yet, if you were to travel back in time 4,500 years to a sun-drenched plain in what is now Pakistan, you would find something impossible. You would walk through a door into a private bathroom, use a toilet, and watch the waste disappear down a terracotta pipe, flowing seamlessly into a sophisticated, city-wide underground sewer system. This was not Rome. This was not Victorian London. This was Mohenjo-Daro, a Bronze Age metropolis that mastered civil engineering while most of the world was still living in scattered villages. But how did a civilization so ancient perfect the technology of water and sanitation millennia before the rest of humanity caught up? Who were the masterminds behind this gridlocked city of baked brick? And perhaps most haunting of all, why did this utopia of cleanliness and order simply vanish, leaving its pipes dry and its streets silent for 40 centuries? To understand the miracle of Mohenjo-Daro, we must first understand the hostile environment it conquered. Rising from the fertile but unpredictable floodplains of the Indus River, the city faced the dual threats of scorching heat and devastating floods. Most ancient cultures surrendered to the landscape, but the builders of the Indus Valley Civilization chose to tame it. They did not build haphazardly. Before a single brick was laid, someone planned the city. This was the birth of urban planning. If you were to fly over the ruins today, you would see a grid so precise it looks like Manhattan. The streets run north-south and east-west, catching the prevailing winds to act as a natural air conditioning system. But the true genius lies not in the wind, but in the earth. Unlike the mud brick structures of Mesopotamia that crumbled in the rain, Mohenjo-Daro was built from millions of oven-baked bricks, standardized to a perfect ratio. This was an industrial feat that suggests a centralized authority, a government not obsessed with building tombs for the dead, but with improving life for the living. As you walk the Central Avenue, the silence of the ruins belies the bustle that once filled them. But look down. Running alongside the street is not a muddy ditch, but a brick-lined channel covered with limestone slabs. This is the artery of the city. Every house, from the smallest workers' quarters to the largest compounds, was connected to this system. It is a level of civic equality that is startling for the ancient world. In other civilizations, hygiene was the privilege of kings. In Mohenjo-Daro, cleanliness was a birthright. The city has been called the City of Wells, and for good reason. With over 700 freshwater wells, water was more accessible here than in many developing cities today. To prevent the wells from collapsing under the pressure of surrounding soil, they used wedge-shaped bricks, a brilliant engineering innovation that created a self-supporting circle of strength. The obsession with water reached its peak in the Citadel, the raised upper district of the city. Here lies the structure that defines the Indus Valley Civilization, the Great Bath. It is not a temple, nor a palace, nor a royal tomb. It is a public water tank, 40 feet long and 23 feet wide. It is the earliest public water tank in the ancient world. But the engineering hidden beneath the surface is what truly astounds archaeologists. To ensure the bath did not leak, the builders utilized a layer of natural bitumen or tar, sandwiched between the bricks. They created a waterproof basin that held water for centuries. This suggests that for people of Mohenjo-Daro, water was more than a utility, it was sacred. It was likely the center of social and ritual life, a place where the community gathered to purify themselves, binding society together not through fear of a king, but through a shared culture of cleanliness. However, bringing water in is only half the battle. The true test of the city is how it gets the water out. This is where Mohenjo-Daro leaves the ancient world behind. Inside the private homes, archaeologists found vertical chutes built into the walls, guiding waste from upper-story bathrooms down to street level. But it didn't just dump into the street. It flowed into cesspits and soak jars that acted as ancient septic tanks, allowing solid waste to settle while liquid waste flowed into the main drains. The city planners even installed manholes, removable brick covers at regular intervals, so that municipal workers could inspect and clean the drains to prevent clogging. This implies the existence of a municipal department, a workforce dedicated to the maintenance of the city. 4,000 years ago, there were sanitation workers keeping the city healthy, preventing the outbreaks of cholera and typhoid that would plague European cities thousands of years later. But what was it like to actually wake up in this city? If we strip away the grand engineering, we find a society deeply invested in the happiness and health of its people, even the children. Excavations have revealed something heartwarming: toys. While other ancient civilizations filled their tombs with weapons, the people of Mohenjo-Daro filled their homes with terracotta whistles shaped like birds, miniature carts with moving wheels, and dolls with detachable limbs. This speaks of a society where childhood was cherished, where there was leisure time and surplus resources to create joy for the young. It paints a picture of a peaceful domestic life, far removed from the constant warfare that plagued the rest of the ancient world. The sophistication extended to their dining tables as well. We know they were likely the first people to raise chickens for food, a culinary staple that eventually conquered the globe. Their diet was rich and varied, consisting of wheat, barley, lentils, peas, and sesame, often cooked with ginger and turmeric, the earliest roots of the curry culture that defines South Asian cuisine today. But perhaps the most shocking detail comes from their mouths. Analysis of teeth found at the site reveals that these people practiced protodentistry. We have found molars that were drilled with flint points to treat cavities, a procedure that would have been incredibly painful but shows a medical knowledge that rivals that of the Roman era thousands of years later. They cared about hygiene, they cared about diet, and they cared about pain. And in this gridlocked metropolis, women appear to hold a status of respect and perhaps even power. The ubiquitous female figurines, heavily adorned with jewelry and elaborate hairstyles, suggest a society that revered the female form. The meticulous production of beads, specifically carnelian and agate, was a massive industry. Archaeologists have found workshops with tiny drills so fine they are hard to see with the naked eye, used to bore holes in beads that would be worn by women not just in Mohenjo-Daro, but exported to the royal courts of Mesopotamia. Fashion was an industry here. They wove cotton and dyed it vibrant colors. The people of Mohenjo-Daro were not drab survivalists. They were a colorful, fashionable, and clean society walking the streets of a city that worked like a machine. To truly grasp the magnitude of Mohenjo-Daro, we must also look at the commerce that ran the city. If you were to enter the marketplace 4,000 years ago, you wouldn't just see a local bazaar. You would be standing in the center of a global trade hub. Archaeologists have uncovered something remarkable: standardized weights and measures. From the smallest cube of chert stone used by jewelers to weigh gold dust, to the massive weights used for sacks of grain. The ratio is identical across a territory of 1 million square kilometers. This reveals a startling economic truth. The Indus Valley operated on a unified currency of mass. Merchants from Mohenjo-Daro could trade with merchants from Harappa for 100 miles away without a single dispute over quantity. This level of standardization implies a rigid, sophisticated bureaucracy that enforced fair trade, creating a stable economy that allowed the city to flourish for 700 years without the need for a standing army. This obsession with precision extended to their art and craftsmanship, yet it brings us to the greatest silence of the ancient world. While we can read the hieroglyphs of Egypt and the cuneiform of Mesopotamia, the script of the Indus Valley remains undeciphered. We have found thousands of steatite seals, small, square stamps carved with exquisite images of unicorns, bulls, tigers, and elephants, accompanied by short strings of symbols. These were likely used to tag bundles of goods, a Bronze Age branding system. But because the inscriptions are so short, and because we have no Rosetta Stone to translate them, their language is locked away from us. We do not know the names of their kings, their gods, or even the original name of the city itself. Mohenjo-Daro is merely a modern Sindhi, term meaning mound of the dead. We are looking at a civilization that could engineer a flush toilet, but cannot tell us its own name. It is a ghost story of history, where the physical reality is undeniable, but the voice is missing. Despite this silence, the artifacts scream of society that valued skill and beauty. Consider the dancing girl, a small bronze statuette found in the ruins. She stands with a confident posture, hand on her hip, adorned with bangles that cover her arm. This tiny figure proves that Mohenjo-Daro possessed advanced knowledge of metallurgy, specifically the lost wax casting technique, thousands of years before it became common in Europe. Then there's the Priest King, a stone sculpture of a bearded man wearing a robe with a trefoil pattern. His eyes are half closed, perhaps in meditation. These figures suggest a people who celebrated humanity, fashion, and perhaps a spiritual connection that was internal and peaceful, rather than external and monumental. There are no depictions of prisoners of war, no carvings of kings smiting enemies. In a world of blood and conquest, Mohenjo-Daro stands out as a singular anomaly, a superpower built on trade and tolerance. But how far did their influence reach? Cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia speak of a distant land called Meluha, a place of black wood, copper, and gold. Historians now believe Meluha was the Indus Valley. This means that 4,000 years ago, ships from Mohenjo-Daro were navigating the Persian Gulf, docking in the harbors of modern-day Iraq, Bahrain, and Oman. They were the key players in the first global economy. They exported timber, cotton, and semi-precious stones like lapis lazuli. The wealth generated from this trade is likely what funded the massive maintenance costs of their sewer systems and public baths. It was a cycle of prosperity. Engineering created health. Health created a productive workforce. The workforce created goods, and goods created the wealth to maintain the engineering. However, this delicate balance relied heavily on a predictable climate, and the Earth is rarely predictable for long. The forensic evidence from skeletons found in the upper layers of the city tells a dark story of the final days. We see signs of malnutrition, disease, and violence that were absent in earlier eras. This wasn't just a sudden end. It was a slow, agonizing strangulation. Scientific data from ancient riverbeds indicates that the river systems which sustained the region's agriculture began to dry up due to tectonic activity, shifting the water sources. Simultaneously, a global megadrought hit the region, weakening the summer monsoons. The lush plains turned to dust. The city of wells began to run dry. Imagine the psychological toll on a people who had mastered water, only to watch it betray them. As the rivers receded, the trade routes collapsed. The surplus grain that fed the city disappeared. The authority of the priests or administrators, which likely rested on their ability to predict and control the water, would have shattered. The meticulous civic order broke down. Large mansions were partitioned into smaller, cramped quarters. Pottery kilns were built in the middle of the once pristine avenues. The garbage collectors stopped coming. The drains clogged, and the sewage that had once been whisked away now spilled into the streets, bringing disease back with vengeance. The city did not fall with a bang, but with a whimper. Families packed what they could and drifted away to the east and south, devolving from urban citizens back into rural villagers. The knowledge of urban planning was not passed down. It was abandoned as a failed experiment, a casualty of climate change. The tragedy of Mohenjo-Daro is not just that it fell, but that its knowledge was lost. When the city was abandoned around 1900 BCE, the technology of the covered drain and the flush toilet disappeared from the Indian subcontinent for nearly 3,000 years. The world forgot that sanitation was possible on a grand scale. We forgot that urban planning could save lives. As we look at the ruins today, standing stark against the horizon, they serve as a humbling reminder. We are not the first to build great cities, and we are not immune to the forces of nature. They solved the problems we still struggle with, and they did it with nothing but mud, fire, and ingenuity. It forces us to ask, if a Bronze Age civilization could prioritize the health and dignity of every citizen through superior engineering, what is stopping us from doing the same today? The bricks of Mohenjo-Daro are silent, but the legacy of their innovation speaks louder than words. If you could travel back to the height of Mohenjo-Daro, what is the one thing you would want to witness with your own eyes? Would it be the engineering of the Great Bath, or the daily life of the people who built it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the deep past, please like and subscribe for more documentaries on the lost chapters of human history.